student, I'm Mr. Liang. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the MCs in our textbook. Also I would like to talk about some skills when we are doing the MC questions. So for these two questions, we are taking a look at the blood sample, okay? And then in this blood sample, it was found that the patient, okay, he had a bacterial infection. So that's why which part of his blood is most likely to increase during the infection. Okay, so at least we know that there are two main points here: bacterial infection, and also we need to identify which type of the blood cells, okay, it will increase in amount, okay, during the infection. So we take a look at the diagram first. For the diagram, okay, it's very good that the diagram has given us all the types of the blood cells: red cell, and then blood platelet, and then the plasma, the liquid. Okay, plasma is not the blood cell, okay, but it's also a component of the blood, okay. And in this diagram, I would like to mention that some questions, okay, are as good as this because they will give you all the labels, okay, red cell. But some MC or some short question or long question, they may not give you the name, okay. They may give you the letter or P or Q or R or S, okay, and then they may ask you, okay, what is cell P or what is cell Q, something like this, okay, or maybe even in the question, maybe cell P, okay, is responsible for carrying oxygen, something like this, okay, and then ask you to name some characteristic of that blood cells, okay. So remember that, okay, some questions they are good, some questions they are a bit tricky, they try to hidden some information from the MC, and then the best idea is that to label the cells first, okay, to give you a very clear picture. So for the question 1, which part of the blood cell, okay, is most likely to increase during the bacterial infection? So in this question, actually the focus will be the functions of the blood cells, okay. Red blood cell carry oxygen, red blood cell fight against germs, and then the blood platelet help in blood clotting. That's the concept we learn in the functions of the blood cells, right? Okay, and we transfer the logic to here, okay, because there are a lot of bacteria in the patient's body, so that's why there should be more red blood cell, okay, to multiply more, okay, to fight against the bacteria, okay, for example by carrying out phagocytosis, something like this, okay. So that's why you need to clarify the concept of the blood cells functions first, okay. And then for the second one is talking about the doctor advised the patient to take more vitamins to help him to recover after infection. So which part of the blood carry vitamins around the body? So the basic idea is also that you need to recall the functions of the blood cells. Okay, most likely only red blood cell will carry some things, but that some things is not the nutrient but oxygen, okay, and maybe carbon dioxide. So that's why the red blood cell will never carry the nutrients, okay, around the body, okay. But for the whole content of the blood, okay, we have the plasma, because the plasma, okay, it provides a medium, okay, for the chemicals to dissolve and then to carry those substances in our body, okay. So that's why the answer is plasma, okay. So you may think that, wow, for only 2 questions, okay, but Mr. Liang, you use maybe 3 to 4 minutes to finish it, okay. But I just would like to tell you that once you know the main focus, okay, in every question, okay, every question will try to test you, okay, a certain concept. Once you can identify it as soon as possible, okay, and then you can finish the question very, very quickly. Hello student, I'm Mr. Liang. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the questions of the blood vessels. So for the first one, which of the following is a correct comparison that can be applied to all arteries and veins? Okay, so remember the keywords, okay, of the amazing MC in biology is the all, okay, or some, okay, any, okay, something like this. So that's why once you see this adjective, okay, be very, very careful. So first of all, before I explain option A, B, C, I would like to tell you the correct answer first, okay. For the artery, for the veins, okay, which part or which comparison is absolutely correct, okay, without any exceptional case, is option D. Okay, for the arteries, okay, they will carry the blood of higher blood pressure, and for the veins, they will carry the blood with lower blood pressure. And the reason is that we need to clarify the blood flow direction first. Artery, they will carry the blood away from the heart, and vein will carry the blood towards the heart. That's the fact we need to know first, okay? And once we know this fact, okay, somehow we can compare the blood pressure. For the arteries, they carry the blood pumped from the heart, so it must be at a very high blood pressure. And after the blood traveling a long distance, okay, maybe some of the blood travel to your brain, some of your blood travel to your arms, and some of your blood travel to your toes, and then finally they will come back to the heart. So actually this long distance, okay, is just so far away from the pumping force origin. So that's why the blood pressure must be very low, okay, lower than that in the arteries. So that's why option D must be the correct comparison. But why option A, B, C are wrong? Now remember that, okay? Why I always suggest the students to do MC questions, because the MC's questions can help you to clarify the concept, okay? Because you do not only know the correct answer, but you also know why the other three answers, they are wrong. That's a very good way for you to clarify your concept, okay? So for option A, actually for the arteries, this statement is correct, okay? It will connect to capillaries at one end, okay? From the heart, okay? For example, we pump the blood to the brain, something like this, okay? So that's why the capillaries are at that end of the brain, okay? But for the vein, okay, this statement is not that correct, okay? The veins is saying that veins connected to capillaries at both ends. This statement is only correct for the hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein can connect the capillaries, one end in the small intestine and the other end is in the liver. So for the vein, only the hepatic portal vein can fit into this description. But for the other normal vein, okay, common vein, okay, for example, pulmonary vein, okay, there is only a network of capillaries in the lungs, okay, and then they will join back and then go back to the heart. That means only one end, okay, in that particular organs. And then for option B, okay, actually, veins, it contains valve, yes, it's correct. But for the arteries without valves, okay, it will be wrong. Because I show you one example here, okay, in the pulmonary artery, okay, there are also valves, okay, in these arteries, okay. Pulmonary arteries, okay, is one of the blood vessels connecting to the heart, okay, and then it will carry the blood from the heart to the lungs. So there is also valves, okay, to prevent the blood flow of the blood go back to the heart. And then for option C is talking about the blood color, okay. So in arteries, the blood inside is red, and for the veins, the blood inside is bluish, okay, or purplish blue, okay. So somehow, okay, it seems to be correct because some of students, okay, they may think that for the arteries, they carry the oxygenated blood, and then for the oxygen, because it combined with hemoglobin, it will form the red color blood, okay. And for the veins, because the deoxygenated blood without oxygen at all, so that's why the blood is not red and then maybe purplish blue, okay. So that's why some of the students, okay, they may just grab these two ideas, okay, and then they think that this answer is correct, and of course it's wrong, okay. And before I explain why, I also need to talk about the carbon monoxide, okay. Once the carbon monoxide combined with the hemoglobin, it will form a pink color, we need to know any exceptional case or any special case, okay, to show that this comparison is not correct at all. So for the pulmonary artery, okay, so because that's the blood vessel carrying the blood away from the heart to the lungs for gaseous exchange. So that's why for the pulmonary artery, it contains the oxygenated blood. So that's why in this artery, the blood is not red. Okay, the blood may be purplish blue or maybe even purple. And then for the pulmonary vein, this the vein containing the oxygenated blood. So that's why in pulmonary vein, okay, it should contain the blood of red color. Okay, so that's why for these two exceptional cases, we know that this comparison is not correct for all cases. So for this question, actually you need to do a simple calculation. Okay, it's talking about the ratio. The ratio actually, you can see this formula here. Okay, I have already given you. So the ratio is that the ratio of the mean diameter of the lumen. The lumen, that means the inner space, okay, of the blood vessel. Okay, the mean diameter of the lumen, okay, to the mean thickness of the vessel wall. So for the vessel wall, I draw it a little bit thicker. Okay, and then you will see that what is the meaning of the vessel wall, okay, thickness. So that's the vessel wall. Okay, so that's the ratio. Mean diameter of the lumen, okay, is divided by the mean thickness of the vessel wall. So in this simple calculation, because okay, we actually I did not ask you to remember the number of the vessel wall thickness, okay, and also the mean diameter, or how many millimeter of the vessel wall, okay, is in the artery or capillary, something like this. So that's why you don't need to really get a number to calculate. Okay, you just need to compare, okay, the relative thickness, okay, of the these three types of blood vessels. Okay, so you can see here, it is the main focus of this question. Okay, you need to compare, okay, the thickness, the relative thickness. For the artery, it contains the thickness vessel wall, and for the capillaries, it has the thinnest vessel wall, one cell thick vessel wall, and for the vein, okay, the thickness is medium. Okay, so for the simple metaphor is that if I have a cake now, okay, I have a cake, and then I would like to divide the cake for in a party, okay, for different people. Okay, so for example, if there are 10 people in the party, 5 people in the party, or only 2 people in the party. So actually, if I ask you all, in which party, okay, the people can get a larger piece of cake, okay, so you can tell me that if I divided the cake into half, okay, for 2 people, okay, so that means each of them will get half of the cake. And then if I divided it for 10 people, okay, so everyone will only get 1/10 cake, okay, and then for 5 people, okay, everyone will only get 1/5 piece of cake, right? Okay, so that's why what we need to be aware, okay, or think about first, okay, is the thickness of the vessel wall. So that means we mainly deal with the number, okay, on the bottom. So that's why we go back to the concept, okay. So the concept is that for the capillaries, okay, it has the thinnest vessel wall. So that means for the number, okay, on the bottom, okay, so it should be the smallest one, okay, the smallest one. So it's just like the cake is divided for 2 people, okay, so finally, okay, the number, the ratio, okay, should be the highest, okay, so that's why for the ratio, okay, R, okay, for the vessel R, it must be the capillary. On the other hand, if I divide the number, okay, for the artery, it has the thickness vessel wall, so that means the vessel wall, the number should be the largest, okay, so that's why I divided the cake for 10 people, so everyone will only get 1/10 piece of cake, so that's why the number should be the smallest, okay, so that's why vessel Q is the artery. And for the vein, okay, we check the final number. Vein, it has the medium thickness of the vessel wall, so that's why the number should be in between 4 and 16, okay, and 10, okay, actually it's within our expectation, so that's why the final answer is C. So in this question, okay, you may think that wow, it's about calculation, Mr. Leung, and I do not remember the number. Actually, there is no number for you to remember. Okay, you just need to know how to compare relative thickness of these three types of vessel, and then you will find the number. So before that, make sure that you really able to distinguish different structures from each other in our heart. The atrium, the ventricles, the septums, the heart tendons, something like this. So let's take a look at the diagram first. So for the diagram, that's the thing I talk about. So in this diagram, okay, actually it doesn't tell you all the structure name or which part is the ventricle, which part is the atrium, okay, it doesn't tell you, but that's why we need to perform our good practice, okay, to label all the structure first, okay. So structure P will be the right ventricle, Q is the right atrium, R will be the heart tendon, and S will be the left ventricular muscle wall, okay. So why do I know that it is the left part? Okay, because we can see that the muscle wall here is much thicker, okay, than the right hand side of our heart, okay. So that's why we know that it should be the left side of our heart, okay. So and then we go to the choice for option A. Structure P contracts to deliver blood to various parts of the body except the lungs, but we know that, okay, because it should be the right ventricle, and for the right ventricle it should connect the pulmonary artery, okay, which is carrying the blood to the lungs, okay, away from the heart to the lungs. So that's why it is wrong, okay, because it should pump the blood to the lungs for gaseous exchange, okay. And for the option B is saying that structure Q, okay, the left atrium receive the blood from the pulmonary vein. Yes, that's correct, because for the left hand side of our blood, okay, is dealing with the oxygenated blood, okay, and the oxygenated blood is coming from the heart, from the lungs to the heart, okay. And then for option C is saying that structure R, that means the heart tendon, can control the opening and closing of the valves, okay, and the keyword is control, okay. And we find that actually it's a wrong concept, because for our heart, okay, or for the valves, it should be, okay, being opened or being closed due to it depends on the blood pressure difference, okay. So that's why in one video I have already talked about that. If we would like to think about the condition of the valves being opened or being closed, we should first, the first step is to determine the blood pressure difference first, okay. So actually the heart tendon is responsible for holding the position of the valves and preventing it from turning inside out. And for option D, structure S contracts to force the blood out of the heart through the pulmonary artery. But for the structure S, because it is on the left hand side of our heart, so it should be the left ventricle, and it should pump the blood to the aorta rather than pulmonary artery. So that's why in this question, okay, the first very important steps is to label the structures and also to recognize which part is the left hand side of our heart first. So that's for the skills, okay, for doing the MC question of the heart. And one thing I would like to tell you that just like the last question, okay, about the blood sample. Okay, it shows that actually the picture, okay, we show you is always the real one, okay, but not the drawing. It's the real picture of the heart, of the blood cell, something like this. So make sure that, okay, you do not only to recognize the structure from the drawing, okay, but also from the real picture of that particular organs or cells. We are going to talk about the MC questions of the pulmonary circulation and systematic circulation. So for the first part, okay, we need to take a look at the diagram first. So as what I mentioned, okay, this diagram doesn't give you the name of the blood vessels, okay, A, B, C, D, okay, is unknown, but actually we can distinguish these four blood vessels, okay, by ourselves. So the secret is to take a look at the valves, okay, to take a look at the valves to determine what should be the direction of the blood flow, okay. And the key point is that take a look at this particular part, okay, this particular part to distinguish, okay, the blood flow. So the concept is that when the blood flow from this chamber to move to this chamber, okay, so or is pumped to this chamber, so the valve will be opened, right, okay. However, if the blood is pumped up from this direction, okay, so the valve should be closed, okay. So that's why from this diagram we are able to distinguish the blood flow direction first, and then I draw this blue and red arrow for you. So finally, we should know that vessel A from heart to the lungs, pulmonary artery. B from lungs to the heart, pulmonary vein. And C from heart to the body part except the lungs should be the aorta. And D from body to go back to the heart, so it should be the vena cava. So once we know the blood flow direction, and then we can determine the blood content in that particular blood vessels, okay. So which blood vessel should contain the lowest carbon dioxide content, okay. And the idea is that for our lungs, okay, is responsible for gases exchange. So that's why after the blood pass through the lungs, it should be remove the carbon dioxide already and uptake the oxygen, okay. So that's why for blood vessel B, okay, should be the answer of containing lowest carbon dioxide content. Hello student, I'm Mr. Leung. So in this question, we are going to determine, okay, the blood flow direction, okay, which can supply oxygen to our heart muscles. So the thinking process is that, so we need to know that the blood, it must be oxygenated blood. And for the oxygenated blood, it must come from our pulmonary vein, okay. So that's why for the option A and B, okay, either one of them will be the answer. But option C and option D, they are wrong because it's talking about the pulmonary artery, which should contain the deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs, okay. So it must be A and B. And then for the oxygenated blood from the pulmonary vein, so they should go to the left atrium, okay. Left atrium will receive the oxygenated blood from the pulmonary vein. So that's why for option A and option B, and we know the answer finally, okay, it must be the option A, from left atrium and then to the left ventricle to the aorta, okay, and then it's going to become branches to the coronary artery to supply the oxygenated blood to our heart muscles. So for this question, actually the key point is that you need to be able to determine what is the blood content, and we know that it should be a high level of oxygen. Also, it should come from the pulmonary vein and then go to the left hand side of our heart structure. So that's why that's the logic and the focus of this question. Hello students, so in this question we are going to talk about the tissue fluid, okay? And then in the diagram, we know that the capillaries, it provide a place, okay, for the material exchange, okay, between the blood and the body cells. So that's why when we talk about exchange, it should be two directions, right? But in this question, it's only asking one direction only. Okay, it's talking about if there is a substance, okay, moving from the body cells to the capillaries. So what should it be? So we know that for the body cells, okay, they should uptake something useful, oxygen and the nutrients, okay, and then they will remove some metabolic waste, okay, from the cells, go back to the capillaries and for them to carry away. So that's why for this direction, we know that it's probably some metabolic waste here rather than some useful substance, for example the oxygen or the nutrients. Okay, so that's why the answer finally should be carbon dioxide.